Hello, my friends. John Wilson back to share another design element for a fun cutback bridge. I posted this in the Facebook group, and in that I had some questions about how to do these types of cases. So I thought I'd just run through this case. It's already been designed, but let's go ahead and take a look at it. So you can see we have a chrome bridge that we're going to mill out, and it's set up with an anatomical cutback and a bar bridge here. It's double abutted and on two sides here, and then I have a single, and then I have a splinted connector bridge. You can see over here, this is on this bridge, and it's a connector bridge, but still a cutback at this point. All right, so let's go ahead and run through this case. And remember, this is a case that I've already designed, so we're going to redesign this thing. So let's just say design, and we're going to go through and talk over why we've done certain things. Yes, I want to keep this design. Let's see if it's going to work. And remember, as we're bringing this into this feature here, and it's propagating this, all of my videos are done in a fashion to, get you engaged in understanding that I'm not going to edit anything. This is a one and done type of situation. I'm running through it and talking through it. So the first part of this is just setting insertion and getting the margins lined. This is rather dry and boring. I'm going to go ahead and just click through here as fast as I can and just continue to talk a little bit about this stuff. It's really, really important to set your insertion direction by view. Don't just trust what they're saying here. If you want to optimize it to get the least amount of undercuts, hallelujah. But for me, it's just based on putting it on a surveyor and with my mind's eye. If I can see this part of the margin here, I want to be able to see this part of the margin over here. Any part of the margin I can't see is obviously going to be blocked out and will be an open margin. So that's just simple things to think about. So the visualization on this is no different for any other crown and bridge aspect of it. All we're going to do is just run through the actual margin setting here and talk a little bit about the spacer settings and what you're trying to accomplish with the spacer settings when we're doing these types of cases. We have to understand that, one, if we're going to do a reductive form, we need to have drill compensation, right? And we have to be able to pair our cement settings based upon the most advantageous part of the properties of the material that we're going to use. If we're using something that we're going to mill out of a very hard and dense material, well, burr size is going to be different, and the deflection of that burr is going to be different. The deflection of the material is going to be different. All of these things are going to influence how you have to aid in our fudge factor, as I call it, because that's essentially what cement space and drill compensation is. It allows you to be able to compensate for the challenges of machining and the challenges of the material. So again, as I mentioned, we've done this already. So the anatomy's brought in, and you know all how to set teeth and get it in the right position. And if you think about this case, it behooves me to share what we're doing. Well, this case is idealized for a lower arch. It starts with understanding where the teeth were, all right? This is my plane of occlusion. It's opposing another denture that we're going to be making a new denture on. So I have everything I need to make this ideal because we're going to finish up the lower arch and adapt the current denture to it and be ready for us to make a new denture with it. All right, so we have this information. Now let's take a look at our anatomy as it's presented here and think about what we're trying to accomplish. So we know that as we do the connectors on this, the bridge is going to come in and our bar for the hater bar is going to be added. So we need to add some things beforehand. Well, again, if we're talking about visualizing my path of insertion for this combo case, which is going to have a partial in these areas, well, I'm going to have a hater bar that's going through the middle here. I'm going to have a VKS ball attachment off the terminal end here. And I need to have a rest seat for a ring clasp that's going to come around from mesial to mesial. We're going to have a little tip of a clasp here that's going to come around. It's going to balance this area. And one of the reasons why these are double abutted is because these teeth aren't tremendously great. And we have some issues. We're trying to get some longevity out of this case based on over engineering. I know from the functional aspect of this, if this isn't managed ideally on this side, every time they bite on this terminal dentition here, or this distal extension, I should say, it's going to want to torque this side. So I'm going to make a clasp that's going to have a lot of passivity to it. Essentially, just the tip of this clasp is going to have any retention. And as they function on this side, the tip of that clasp is going to go deeper into the undercut here and pivot on that area. All right, that's in theory. That's what we're trying to accomplish. But in this, I want to be able to put a rest seat in here. And I want to do it in a manner that may be a little bit different than most people are thinking, because again, we could, once this is finished, then just use an attachment, cut it out here, separate it in the final form. But if I do it in this manner, I can do some cool stuff. So let's go and see why. So let's go back to the attachment apply here. And we're going to go back here in a second. But in the sculpt form, and we look at the attachments, you can see very clearly I've used two different attachments that I've made and brought into 3Shape as a reductive attachment. And that reductive attachment, you can see, has a radius bottom to it. It allows much easier machining. And it allows two things. It allows the rest to have a little pivot to it as well. So you can see I have two attachments converging on one another. And what's going to happen when I go back to add this back in? So we'll add those clicks back in that I just took away. Well, you can see it's a very nice rest seat that's going to be here. It's radiused at the bottom. And it's going to allow me, when I do my cutback on this, to maintain this perfectly. I won't have to join it together and have some ugly morphing here. That's how I get it as clean as I can in these designs. Again, I'm looking at my guide plane on this part where I'm going to be putting my VKS attachment in here, and you're going to see rather clearly once we get to that point, it's going to allow me to do some cool stuff. So I don't put the attachment in at this point because I'm going to go and do a cutback on this unit, which is going to be very difficult to do around this, and you'll see why later. So let's go ahead and click forward, and we'll get into the meat and potatoes of how we're doing the cutback and some of the features on what you can and can't do in here inside of 3Shape. And as it's moving forward, it's going to throw in my connector bridge here. So again, all the clicks have been done. You can see rather clearly when I bring it in what I'm trying to accomplish. I want this to be extended into my restoration. And then when I go to edit this bar, rather quickly, you can see that it's converging through the model a lot of areas. And I will share with you that when you get into the sculpt aspect here and you come through this aspect, never use this tool here, this cut to feature. I would say 85% of the time. 85% of the time it will lock up your order and it will not work. It's much easier if you hand morph it with the tweezer tool here in this area. You can see rather clearly that we have some areas that we can adjust on here. So again, we're in the sculpt aspect for the bar. You can see that the little arrow is pointed on this bar. So again, we can come back here and use the direction key to pull it in the direction. So holding the control button in, you can pull it in the direction and put it on the inside of our anatomy. All right, we want to have the joint here that aids us here. We want to have the joint here that aids us as well. So now the bar is managed to the residual ridge here and inside of our copings. Well, how did these copings get made? Let's go ahead and take a look at that real quick. So let's go ahead and just click on this unit here. And we'll click here. And we'll go back to the coping aspect here. Now this is what you do. So you can see this red line here. If you just go and draw on this, you can pull it any direction you want, right? You can make your cutback any way you want. You can see where it's coming up around here, and I've drawn it in this manner because I want to have a facial cutback on this that I'm going to stack porcelain to. But let's think about it. What if we were to do something kind of cool over here? What if we wanted to utilize this as a way for us to make a more full contoured zirconia that's going over the top of this that we would bond to this bar? Well, how would you do that? Well, you have a lot of options over here in the advanced settings. If you wanted to remove the undercut here, and let's just go ahead and remove this, apply the uniform offset here. Now let's see if it's what it's going to do. You can see right now in this element, it has a belly to it, right? Well, if you were to produce the top cap in zirconia, it would never draw to that, no matter how much offset. Within reason, obviously. If you had a ton of offset, you could get it to be loosey-goosey on it. So I'm playing with fire here. I'm not sure if these settings, the way they are going to allow this to produce, but let's see if it would. So let's just say preview. Let's see if we can get through this. Nope. All right, that's no good. So let's see. Let's go ahead and take that off here. Remove the undercuts and preview. All right. So now at this particular point, it's going to draw. You can see that it's coming back into it at this point, right? Is that ideal for what we're trying to talk about? Well, maybe. So let's go ahead and talk about what I was referring to here. So let's go ahead and go into the additional scans real quick here. And let's add in something that I've done outside of 3Shape real quick just to show you. So let's load in this double that I have over here, here. And let's go ahead and turn off the cutbacks here. And let's hope this thing doesn't vomit on me. And we'll turn off the model as well. And you can see what I've done here. You can see that this double structure here that I have done a separation from is done in a very slick way. And I'll show you that really quickly. So let's remove this. Let's go back to our design file here. And let's go ahead and just go ahead and use the additional scan feature to your power. You know, if you think about what we can do here. All right, so all of these are just like a model. You're used to bringing in models in here, but you know, all of these assets are savable as well. So say if I wanted to click this and then click Control and click the other one. And now I have the two full contours that are identical in the design space that's there, right? So I have this pattern that I could do a separation from rather easily on in outside software if I wanted to, but there's ways to bring this back in after you finish, you know, copy in a pen, bring it back in, set margins, and bring the anatomy for reuse in and cut to the margin with drill compensation, all that stuff. I can tell you for certain it will work. Your margins are going to be bulky and it's not going to be as nice as what I've presented over here. But again, you know, I'm sharing some fun strategies. I'm jumping all over the place to really share some things on what you can do inside of 3Shape here. So let's look at a couple things here. Remember I told you about the bar and getting this thing edited in the sculpt aspect. We want to make sure that all of this stuff is on the inside. Remember I changed this a little bit because I eliminated the offset. So I want to make sure that this stuff is all inside and clean and everything's looking good. Now, again, if I didn't mention this initially in the sculpt design, I never used this aspect of it. I can't recall if I just told you about that, but in this area where it's coming into the ridge, I want to be able to have a little bit of pressure on this tissue in this area. It's going to make it much nicer and easier for us to do this, but it has to be within reason. A lot of times when I'll come back in here, I will sculpt this radius here because if we remember, this clip is only going to be in this section. When you see hater bars that have 3 or 4 clips on here, it's eliminating any possibility of rotation coming this way. We want to be able to have some freedom to this. This VKS ball attachment in combination to this is going to allow a little bit of pivot and resiliency so we're not transferring all the load over. Additionally, this design, having this pivot point over here for a rest seat, it's going to allow a clasp to come around as a more or less a reciprocating arm until just the tip of the clasp is engaging on the mesial aspect that will build in porcelain. So it allows longevity. And if you really think about this design and what we've accomplished here, we're trying very quickly to be able to aid these teeth in lasting as long as possible. You know, making a rigid connector here, double abutting here is spanning the load across this in a manner that is going to be beneficial to these long-term success of these teeth. Double abutting on this side, very similar. We're managing the load of this appliance. Now we have to be really smart about these things as well. And some of the wisdom as we've amassed here is, anytime you have a unilateral free end here, this contact to the tissue has to be managed so precisely with relines, or every time they bite on this side and that saddle gives a little bit, it's torquing everything and really torquing this side. So that's why having that long arm that's reciprocating and just engaging the tip over here will give some longevity to this side. All right, so that's a lot of wisdom in a partial and attachment design. Hopefully you'll see the value of that. Let's go ahead and click through and let's think about this. Well, you know, the material thickness is thick for metal. I can mill down to 0.25 and still have good results in chrome. So I'm going to say no to all of this stuff. I'm not even going to think about it. I'm just going through the whole darn thing, and I'm just going to go to town on this. And once we get to the final stage here where it's can combine and it's going to allow me to sculpt, I try to do very minimal sculpting over here. I want to be able to maintain the sharpness of this design based on how I've brought those splines up for the cutbacks. You can see rather clearly we got some very thin sections here. And anybody that's stacked glass and stacked glass on chrome understands the chemical challenges of this material based on the oxide that's going to be formed and how the opaque is going to bond to this. We're going to thin out these areas post-mill as well. We can get it down very, very thin without having fear of popping. But let's talk about some of the tools and what we've done here. Well, inside this aspect of it's going to take one part of the bridge and it's going to allow us to sculpt all this. And if you remember how sharp that bottom edge is, well, all I'm doing very quickly in this is I'm just radiusing that small little part where it comes through the model. You can see very small compression, very lightly up off that tissue, but all my strength. Now, if you looked at where we had this aspect over here when I did that cutback comes all the way up here. Let's go ahead and minimize this real quick. And let's take a look. So if we understand that this sculpt on protective surfaces is on, what's going to happen if I take this tool? Well, nothing. It's protected at that point. Just like my attachment, it's protected at this point. Actually, no, I have it just the opposite. Fun thing about live things. So let's go ahead and turn this off. All right. Now let's see what's going to happen. Oh, I'm going to just kill it, right? So on the connectors itself, it's more or less on this area here. So see how I can degrade that aspect of it? Turn that off, then I can't degrade this area. I can only degrade the area that's below the margin line, right? You guys all know that. I shouldn't have to tell you that stuff. But again, what it allows me to do is after I put the attachment in here, I want to maintain that square plane guide plane that's over here for this attachment. That is square to the top of this as well. This was all based upon my design, and square to the rest seat that's over here. So all three of those are going to draw together. All right. So having that additional scan come in, what does this do? What does this open us up to being able to do? Well, you know, if I had enough dimension on anything, I could essentially mill it, right? And if I had enough offset to anything, I could mill it, right? Well, you can see that because of that offset bridge is not eliminating the actual undercut to the metal, it's going to have a little bit of a belly and it's not going to draw as easily. And we're going to have super sharp edges. But what it does show is what is really possible in here, understanding how to manipulate the product. And that's really what I wanted to show today. So again, guys, it's been my pleasure. I show you these things out of the fun part of digital design, and hopefully there was a couple pearls in here that you were able to catch. And maybe you can change your designs just a little bit more innovatively and to think differently and again, design with purpose. It's going to be my tagline: design with purpose, replicate the pattern. I'm going to say it over and over again. So if you got through 20 minutes of me yammering on about digital design, hallelujah to you, and I thank you for your time and attention. I would really appreciate if you hit that like button, and if you know some people that might benefit from this, share it. You know, talk to them about this. I'd like to feel that there's some value in what I'm sharing here and what I'm trying to go over in these designs, and I'd love to be able to get your feedback from this. So thanks so much, guys. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.